action remakes are going to make my hair fall out. I know that sounds so dramatic, but the way this is just like totally just ruining movies and stuff for me is like, we need to talk about it, okay? So I'm gonna state the obvious. Obviously, this is not a new thing. Remaking an original source material and making it to a movie is largely how we created movies. I mean, of the Brothers Grimm, who in the 1800s wrote very well-known things now. They wrote novels that turned into Disney movies, and they were known for being very dark. Obviously, these got turned into a more lighthearted Disney movie in the future, but it is not abnormal. Marvel is based on comics, there are animes based on webtoons. This is not an abnormal thing. This is very normal for shows, movies, games to be inspired and just rewritten from an original source material. But the key word here is inspired. Disney wrote Tangled based on the book Rapunzel, but Rapunzel was a very dark novel that they took a twist and made it light and happy. I'm not against this. I think this is okay. I think we all get our inspiration from somewhere. But my issue comes where they just try and do a one-for-one copy but make it live action. Animated films are so beautiful. They are truly a hallmark in what I think is a great movie. I think there are so many incredible animated films out there, cartoons, and like cartoons, even we have cartoons that have been making into animated or live action. You know, a lot of superhero stuff even came from original like cartoons, and now they're being turned into live action movies or animated movies. So I'm not saying that this is new. I'm not trying to say, oh, in the last 10 years this has happened and this is terrible and it's ruining Hollywood. No, it's less black and white than that. There has always been inspiration, there has always been remakes, but it's about how I think they are doing it now. The first Disney live action remake that I can find was the Jungle Book in 1994. Okay, so that was a long time ago now, about 30 years ago, and this one, I have not watched it, but apparently it is a very different kind of remake. It's not exact to what it, you know, the original source material. But I kind of just wanted to talk about where this is headed now. I think, like I said, it's very normal for old pieces of media to either take inspiration or take a different approach but still provide the same kind of material. Whether we see it from a cartoon becoming something, or like a webtoon becoming an anime, or a comic becoming a movie. This is not abnormal, but I think there's something special about the art of doing this. There are hundreds of thousands of Marvel comics that follow different plots, different universes, different ideas, and Marvel really took what they were interested in, what they were inspired about, and made it a cinematic universe, right? And this is very well loved. And there is nothing wrong with this. But I think we are just in an era of cash grabs and people just wanting to make money, an era of greediness over art. And I think we will see this in the differences of how adaptations are made now to how they were made. They used to be taken by inspiration and what people thought was interesting and what they wanted to watch, right? But now I think it is not like that at all. 2015 is really when we started to see a lot of movies start to be made into live actions. We saw Cinderella being remade in 2015 with a box office hit of $543 million, which is what I found. The Jungle Book grossing, I believe, $966 million in 2016. We saw 2017, we saw Beauty and the Beast. 2019, we saw Aladdin. And 2019, we also saw The Lion King. And I want to talk about The Lion King for a second. It's not a live action. It's literally just CGI. Like, you can't live action a kind of movie like that, so to even remake it is beyond ridiculous. These movies, though, were very successful, I want to be clear. They all grossed a hell of a lot in box office. But as the 2020s came, I think we saw a lot that had very mixed reviews, such as Mulan, The Little Mermaid, and we saw, even branching outside of Disney, How I Trained Your Dragon. While I believe it's actually good, I've heard good things about it, there was a lot of controversy about this. The Last of Us has had a huge amount of hate. There was the Uncharted movies. When did that come? Uncharted came out in 2022. That was hugely criticized, especially with Tom Holland playing Nathan Drake. And I think when the 2020s hit, when 2019 and above hit, we really saw a decline in how much people liked. I mean, people were still disliking the earlier live remakes. I was one of them. I really dislike the remakes, which is why I'm making this video. I fell asleep during Beauty and the Beast, but they weren't terrible. They were made with love, but they did feel very cash grabby, or kind of like they were running out of ideas, but it also kind of looked like they were dipping their toes into maybe what could be a new genre for them. They weren't going to stop making animated, but they were going to start tiptoeing into the idea of live action. Now, then we get to Mulan and The Little Mermaid and such, and they really start taking a hit. People either feel they're too woke, or they are venturing into a world of cash grabs, and they just felt really unloved. They felt really surface level is probably the best way to put it. And I actually coined this to what I call the Marvel effect. I think the Marvel effect has a huge amount of effect on almost everything, and I really like to, like, even when I have a Sims channel and I talk about The Sims a lot, and it's one of my favorite games, and I say this is like the Marvel effect, where they're just releasing so much stuff, it all feels so service level. For Sims it's packs, but for Marvel it's shows, movies, there's heaps, and I love some of the most recent Marvel movies like Thunderbolt, but I still think it's a Marvel effect. Since Endgame was released in 2019, the Marvel Studios has released 22 films and 17 TV series, and it has only been 6 years. I want you to keep this in mind when you think about the fact that Marvel used to release like one movie a year that was really exciting, and you go to see in the cinemas. Now, I don't watch a lot of the shows now, but I just want you to keep in mind just how much that is, and I want you to think about the fact that some of these TV series are like half an hour, 20-minute episodes, which could gross up to like season being either like 1 or 2 movie length. This is a problem, and this is a problem because it lacks any foundation. It's hard to follow along, it's starting to feel really confusing, and it's hard to keep up with it all. Meaning you are literally now, like me and my Marvel loving friend, we now go, oh, this one sounds interesting, we'll watch this one. Have you watched this one that came out a few years ago? Nope, still haven't. And we used to watch every single Marvel movie in cinemas. Like, we were obsessed, right? And so Endgame came out in 2019. Now, since we've had 22 films and 17 TV series, you need to follow along with me here. And since then, Marvel has felt very cash grabby. It's felt a lot. It's felt very surface level, and a lot of the stuff they've been releasing has felt poor quality and just a poor judgment to release it. Now, I want you to pair this with the idea that in 2020, this is when live actions really started to feel cash grabby. And I think this really shows a downfall of 2019 equaling bad cinema. And I also want you to think, of course, when COVID hit, there was a lot of issues with creating stuff, a lot of things had to be put on hold, but of course also with this money issues like it can flow with each other. I don't exactly know why 2020 is really when this started, but I just kind of want to talk about it and want to share what my personal view is that 2020 hit, 2019 hit, and this is when we really see a downfall of cinema. And I think a lot has to do with Marvel and their cash grabs, and Marvel now being joined with Disney, and it being such a huge world of Hollywood. A huge part of Hollywood is Disney. And so I think when you think of Disney, I mean, you've also got to think Disney's now doing, I saw recently a Bambi remake, but it's like a horror movie. One, it looks terrible quality, it's terrifying, but I do think it's an example of when an adaptation can be done right, which I'm going to jump into now, why these adaptations do not feel right. So this video is probably everywhere. I just really wanted to like yap with you guys about my opinion on this. So I think the reason that adaptations don't feel right now is because they have no purpose. And I'm not saying that necessarily like Cinderella or The Jungle Book or any of those being remade had purpose. Like, I can't remember the last time I watched them, but I think a lot of like original like comics becoming movies, kind of like how I said they took hundreds of thousands of different comics and they narrowed it down to what they thought would make a good show or a good movie, and then they did that. And I think same with like cartoons and stuff, and I can even sometimes understand why anime would come a live action, because not everyone enjoys the style of a webtoon or an anime. I think to make an adaptation work, you really have to understand the source material and why you're doing this. And the why you are making this adaptation cannot come back to money. If the number one reason you are making this comes back to money, you have done it wrong. With that in mind, I want to talk about some of the stuff. I feel like it is all cash grabs. I feel, obviously, Marvel and Disney being one, I think a lot of this comes to cash grab. A lot of it just comes to horrific cash grabs. And I feel like people don't know why it's not that they don't know why they're doing it, it's that they can't come up with a better reason than to make money, so it falls flat. And I said this, I think a way they could have done The Last of Us into a show is, instead of actually following the video game story of Joel and Ellie, they could have done something different. Like, what does the rest of the world look like with this infection? Or why don't we follow some settlers trying to survive? Why don't we follow a town? Why don't we follow people living in a different place or trying to get to, say, like there's an island safe haven? Why don't they try and get to that? Why don't we do something else that is not the video game, because the video game doesn't translate to show well, especially when you're doing it as a cash grab. These adaptations don't know what they want. They're not telling a different story, but they're not one for one telling the same story, so they are just telling a weaker and worse version of the original great source material. The Little Mermaid was a great animated movie. There is no need for it to be a live action. There's not. The Last of Us is a great video game. I understand video games. When I saw, right, that like The Last of Us was becoming a movie or show, I thought that was kind of great. I thought it would be a good idea because I have a lot of people in my life who don't play video games. And so I thought, well, if they can watch the show and understand why I talk so highly of this game, then that's great, because I know some people in my life would never be caught dead actually playing the video game. So I thought, you know what, this is a net positive. It shares a different audience with this media, because obviously some people will seriously never they'll never invest in playing this video game, even if it's great. So I thought this is overall a net positive to get other people to understand why this is such a great piece of media, right? But then it hit me, the reason it's such a great piece of media is, yes, the story is great, but there was so much that this video game did that is because it's a video game. When The Last of Us came out, it had a huge breakthrough in the idea that dialogue can be happening while you're playing the game, and you can be walking as your character and dialogue is happening. The NPCs were better, and there was so much, yes, great story, but the gameplay was great as well. You fell in love with these characters because you're playing as them. And something great is, I remember watching like a behind the scenes of The Last of Us, and they talked about how making the first character you play be Sarah, I believe she's like 14, 12-year-old girl, is great because it gets you to see the eyes of how truly terrifying this apocalypse would be, but let alone for a young girl, doesn't have a car, is home alone, she's terrified, and you're playing as her, and all you want to do is protect this young girl. You are the young girl. And her, spoilers for The Last of Us, her death hits so freaking hard because you were playing as her. And don't get me wrong, Sarah's death in the show still hit hard, but they had to add extra scenes, and they gave us more time, like half an episode with Sarah, and I still felt less emotionally hit than I did in the video game. Because when you are playing as her, you feel this like protective energy. You want to protect her, and I think this really shows that playing a video game is a different experience. When you are playing that character, it is so much easier to get attached. It is so much easier to feel personal with the story. And I also think this is why horror video games hit so much harder than horror movies, because you can't look away, you can't close your eyes, you are playing them. You are them. And so I think, yeah, it's just like that. And while we're on video games being adapted, why don't we talk about Until Dawn? I have not watched this movie yet. I've played the video game partially. I know the whole video game. Oh, the video game is nothing like the movie. The movie is basically Dead by Daylight with like a twist. Like, it's not Until Dawn. It makes no sense. It's cringy. I have no idea why they decided to recreate it. They didn't even do it right. And it just feels like they like think if they put the name of the video game or the original source material on it, they're just automatically gonna get money. And maybe that's right, but it's not right. Like, it's not okay. It's ruining cinema. I just want to go and watch a movie made with passion, which is why I want to start watching more indie movies and shows. I've been watching a lot of like YouTube shorts and like YouTube movie shorts, because indie films just have so much more love to them. I don't know what I can say. Like, it's true. And so I don't know, that's kind of my rant. I feel really frustrated. I feel like it is really bad, and I'm not saying that live action adaptations cannot be good, live action remakes cannot be good, but I do think it's ruining the idea that animation is an incredible thing, because it is an incredible thing. But I also feel like they're ruining what live action adaptations could be. Like, what if they did like a The Last of Us show where they explored different things? Like, people have so many questions. They could make it a series of shorts where it's like each episode is following different characters and they're answering questions that people have, like is the rest of the world infected? Is Ellie actually immune? Blah blah blah. Is there other immunes? What would have happened? You could even do like the What If series with Marvel. You could have done so much more interesting stuff, and I feel like live adaptations or live action remakes should actually be answering questions, telling a story. How are you telling something differently, or why are you telling it? Oh, it's because we wanted like viewers to be able to experience a video game if they don't play video games. Okay, well, you didn't do that because you told a different story. The way you told it is totally different to what it feels like to play the video game. So it's just like, it just doesn't make sense. We should be telling a story for a reason, not for money. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I obviously did not mention Snow White here, which is probably the most hated remake, and I didn't talk about it for a few reasons. One, I feel like the reason it failed actually was not necessarily because it was an adaptation, but rather because of the way the PR of it all was handled, and the way that like the marketing of it was handled, and the way they chose specific things, the way they chose some specific things in the movie, the way they handled the entire movie. I think the hate and the controversy surrounding it is the real reason it failed. Not necessarily because it was a live action, but I think the fact that it was a live action just like made it on thin ice already, and then the way it was all handled made it just nail in the coffin. No way it was ever gonna survive. So I didn't really talk about it in this video just because I feel like that has so many issues. I could talk about it all day, and it's better off being its own video. So to get that out of the way, I'm aware Snow White is probably the worst adaptation we've had, but I'm also aware that the reasons for that failing root way bigger than just being an adaptation. But anyways, that is all, guys. Do you like live action remakes? Do you think it's ruining Hollywood? Do you think it's ruining cinema? When do you think live action remakes really started going downhill? What are your thoughts on it all? I will see you all later. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!